Imagine standing on the battlefield not of war, but of the mind. The great Roman emperor Marcus Aurelius once faced a moment of crushing betrayal. His most trusted general, Avidius Cassius, declared himself emperor in rebellion. News of this treachery reached Marcus while he was deep in battle on the frontiers of the empire. Did he rage? Did he crumble under the weight of this personal and political betrayal? No, he simply wrote in his journal, "If a thing is beyond your control, it is not worth your disturbance." And in that moment, he let go. Now, take a look at your own life. Maybe it's a colleague who spread false rumors, a relationship that ended unexpectedly, or an opportunity that slipped through your fingers. How many times have we let these moments consume us? We replay them in our minds, feeding the fire of anger and regret, hoping that somehow reliving them will change what has already happened. But it won't. Letting go is not about indifference. It is about wisdom. It is understanding that our energy is too valuable to waste on things outside our control. The spilled coffee, the slow traffic, the words of others. None of these have power unless we give it to them. You see, the Stoics knew that freedom is not about changing the world, but mastering our response to it. When we stop being ruled by external events and the opinions of others, we unlock a rare kind of peace, one that is unshaken by life's chaos. So today, I invite you to ask yourself, are you holding on to things that no longer serve you? And if so, are you ready to set yourself free? There is a silent weight we carry, a burden of past regrets, failed expectations, and wounds that never quite seem to close. We clutch onto them as if they define us, fearing that if we let go, we lose a part of ourselves. But what if this weight is the very thing drowning us? What if freedom is not found in holding on, but in releasing? Seneca once said, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than is necessary." And yet, how often do we torment ourselves with memories of what was, or anxieties of what could be? We relive conversations that have long since ended, replay betrayals that can no longer harm us, and grip onto an illusion of control over things already lost. But the past cannot be rewritten, and the future cannot be dictated by mere worry. In a world that glorifies attachment to success, to validation, to possessions, we have forgotten that true strength lies in detachment, not the cold indifference of apathy, but the quiet resilience of acceptance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And isn't that what we truly seek? Not the ability to control everything, but the wisdom to release what we cannot. We live in an age where distractions are infinite, yet peace remains rare. The mind that clings suffers, but the mind that lets go walks freely. So the question remains, do we break the chains, or do we forge them tighter? The world will shake us, break us, and test us in ways we never imagined. Storms will rage, people will betray, and life will unfold in ways we did not choose. And yet, within the chaos, there is a single unshaken truth. Our response is ours alone. Nothing, no force, no injustice, no cruelty can ever take that from us. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." But how often do we trade this freedom away? We curse the rain instead of carrying an umbrella. We blame the world for its cruelty instead of forging resilience. We exhaust ourselves trying to bend reality to our will, forgetting that power is not found in controlling the uncontrollable, but in mastering the self. Look around. How many of us let a stranger's words ruin our day? How many let a missed opportunity define our worth? We hand over our peace to things that do not belong to us. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you shouldn't give circumstances the power to rouse anger, for they don't care at all. The world moves indifferent to our suffering, yet we act as if it conspires against us. The truth is simpler. What happens is nothing. What we do with it is everything. So we must ask ourselves, do we remain prisoners of the external, or do we reclaim what was always ours? Time slips through our fingers like sand, and yet we live as if we own an endless supply. We dwell in the past, dragging our regrets like chains. We obsess over the future, fearing shadows that have yet to form. And in doing so, we let the only thing that truly belongs to us, the present, fade into nothingness. Seneca once warned us, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." And yet, how many of us live as if we are merely rehearsing for some distant moment? We scroll mindlessly through our days, numbing ourselves with distractions, always waiting for the weekend, waiting for success, waiting for the perfect time to be happy. But what if that time never comes? What if this, right now, is all we ever have? In a world where every second is stolen by notifications, by endless noise, by the pull of 1,000 unfinished desires, presence has become rare. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, confine yourself to the present, not as a passive surrender, but as a call to truly exist, to feel the wind on our skin, to taste our food instead of merely consuming it, to listen when someone speaks instead of crafting our reply before they finish. Life is not found in memories of yesterday or dreams of tomorrow. It is only here, in this breath, in this fleeting moment. And the question remains, will we live it or let it die unnoticed? Everything we know, everything we love, will one day change. The faces we cherish, the roles we play, the very bodies we inhabit, none of it will remain as it is. And yet, we resist. We fight against the inevitable, clinging to what was, fearing what will be, as if our defiance could halt the turning of the world. But time does not bargain, and life does not ask for permission. It moves, with or without us. Epictetus once said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." But how often do we waste our energy wishing for things to remain the same? We mourn the loss of what once was instead of embracing what now is. We fear the unknown, forgetting that everything we now hold dear was once unknown to us. The seasons change without hesitation, the rivers carve new paths without regret, and yet we stand frozen, unwilling to move with the tide. Look at the world we live in. Technologies evolve, relationships shift, and the certainty we crave dissolves the moment we grasp it. But Marcus Aurelius reminds us, observe constantly that all things take place by change. To resist change is to resist life itself, but to accept it, to flow with it instead of against it, that is where peace is found. So the choice is ours. Do we crumble under the weight of change, or do we rise and move with it? We spend our lives chasing approval, bending and twisting ourselves to fit expectations that are not our own. We measure our worth by the reactions of others, by applause, by fleeting words of praise that vanish as quickly as they come, and in doing so we give away the most precious thing we have, our sense of self. Epictetus warned us, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. But how often do we silence ourselves out of fear? How often do we trade authenticity for acceptance? We allow the opinions of strangers to dictate our happiness, as if their fleeting judgments could ever define who we are. We live in a world where a number on a screen, a like, a comment, a follower count, holds the power to make or break our confidence. But why? Why do we grant so much weight to things that hold no real substance? Seneca reminds us, you act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. We fear rejection as if it will break us, yet we desire validation as if it will complete us. But the truth is, neither matters. The only judgment that holds meaning is the one we pass upon ourselves. So we must decide, do we continue living for the approval of others, or do we finally step into the freedom of living for ourselves? Loss is inevitable, It will come for us all in different forms at different times. People will leave, possessions will fade, moments will slip into memory, and we will find ourselves standing in the empty spaces left behind. And yet, what is loss if not transformation? What is an ending if not the beginning of something else? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." But we resist. We grieve not only for what we have lost, but for the illusion that anything was ever truly ours to keep. We hold on to the past as if we can freeze time, as if we can force life to remain the same. But life does not work that way. It moves, indifferent to our desires, unconcerned with our attachments. Look at the world around us. Seasons shift, rivers carve new paths. Even the stars we see in the night sky are not the same as they once were. Nothing is permanent, yet we demand permanence. We fear loss, but in doing so we forget that everything we have now was once something we had yet to gain. Seneca reminds us, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a man who is alive." Fear of loss is fear of life itself. So we must ask ourselves, do we mourn what is gone, or do we embrace what is yet to come? We curse the struggles that shape us, as if life's hardships are an injustice rather than a necessity. We ask, "Why me?" when faced with pain, never considering that without adversity we remain untested, unshaped, unbroken, but also unmade. It is through fire that metal is forged. It is through pressure that coal becomes diamond. Why should we be any different? Seneca once wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Yet, in the modern world, we see struggle as failure. We are told that ease is the goal, that comfort is the reward. But what kind of life is one without challenge, without the moments that force us to rise, to grow, to become more than we were? The storms we endure are not punishments, they are lessons. They are reminders that we are stronger than we think, more resilient than we believe. Think of the setbacks we've faced, the disappointments that once seemed unbearable. And yet, here we are. We survived, we adapted, we learned. Marcus Aurelius tells us, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." There is no progress without resistance, no wisdom without suffering. We are not meant to be spared from struggle, we are meant to be sharpened by it. So the question is not whether adversity will come, it will. The only question is, will we let it break us, or will we let it build us? We chase wealth as if it will save us, as if the right number in our bank account, the right house, the right car will finally bring us peace. But no matter how much we acquire, we always want more. We move the goalpost further, convinced that the next possession, the next achievement will silence the restlessness within. Yet the hunger remains. Why? Because we have been looking in the wrong place. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor." And still we measure success by what we own, rather than what we are. But tell me, if a man has everything the world can offer but has no peace within himself, is he truly rich? Can gold fill the void left by an uneasy mind? Can luxury erase the weight of an unfulfilled life? Marcus Aurelius reminds us, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. The wealth that truly matters cannot be taken, cannot be lost. It is the strength of our character, the depth of our wisdom, the richness of our soul. Money can be stolen, fame can fade, but inner peace, that is ours alone to build. So the choice is before us. Do we chase illusions, or do we cultivate the kind of wealth that no hand can take away? Life unfolds as it will, indifferent to our desires. The rain falls whether we curse the sky or not. The past does not change no matter how tightly we cling to it. Some call this fate, others call it chance, but whatever name we give it, one truth remains. There are forces beyond us that we cannot control. Yet, does this mean we simply surrender? that we let life happen to us like leaves carried by the wind. No. Acceptance is not weakness, it is not resignation, it is power. Epictetus once said, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it happens. Then you will be happy." This is not an invitation to sit idle. It is a call to align ourselves with reality, to work with what is, rather than waste our energy fighting what cannot be undone. We do not control every outcome, but we do control how we meet it. The river does not resist the rock in its path. It flows around it, finding another way. In this world there will be moments that shake us, losses that test us, circumstances that humble us. And in those moments we can choose to lament or we can choose to act. Fate will deal its hand, but we still decide how to play it. So we move forward, not as victims, but as those who refuse to be defeated. We walk this life believing we are separate, islands drifting alone in an endless sea. We guard ourselves, chase personal victories, build walls to keep the world at bay. But what if the very thing we seek, peace, fulfillment, purpose, has never been found in isolation? What if it has always existed in the moments when we reached beyond ourselves? Seneca once said, "No one can live happily who has regard to himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility. You must live for your neighbor if you would live for yourself." The modern world tells us otherwise. It preaches self-interest, personal gain, the illusion that happiness is a solitary pursuit. Yet when have we ever felt more alive than in the moments we have lifted another? When have we ever felt more whole than when we have lightened the burden of someone else? We are bound together, woven into the same fabric of existence. To serve others is not to diminish ourselves. It is to expand beyond the small confines of ego and step into something greater. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, what is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee. We do not lose by giving, we gain. We do not weaken by serving, we strengthen. The world will tell us to take, but wisdom whispers a deeper truth. What we give, we keep forever. We move through life at a relentless pace, consumed by the noise, reacting rather than understanding, running rather than thinking. But what if the answers we seek are not out there, but within? What if clarity is not found in the rush, but in the stillness we so often avoid? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Yet, we flee from ourselves. We drown in distractions, fearing the weight of our own thoughts, as if reflection is a confrontation rather than liberation. But without reflection, how do we grow? Without pausing to question, to examine, to understand, how do we know if we are truly living or merely existing? The modern world rewards action, but wisdom rewards understanding. Seneca reminds us, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How often have we been prisoners of our own unchecked thoughts, tormented by fears we never challenged, regrets we never learned from? We must become observers of our own minds, sharpening our perspective like a blade against stone. Reflection is not indulgence, it is discipline. It is the quiet recalibration of the soul, the sharpening of reason, the stripping away of illusion. At the end of each day we must ask, did we act with wisdom? Did we allow emotions to rule us? Did we move closer to the person we wish to become? Without these questions, we are blind to our own existence, drifting without direction. But with them we awaken, we see, and in seeing we become more than we were yesterday. We feel deeply, anger, sorrow, joy, fear. It is what makes us human, but to be ruled by emotion is to be at the mercy of forces we do not control. How often have we lashed out in anger only to regret it later? How often have we let fear paralyze us, keeping us from seizing the moments that mattered? Emotions are real, but they are not truth. They whisper in our ears, urging us to react, to surrender, to give in to their fleeting grasp. But we are not mere creatures of impulse. We are capable of mastery. Epictetus warned us, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. If we let others dictate our emotions, if we allow circumstances to pull us like puppets on strings, we have already surrendered our freedom. The world thrives on this. News cycles engineered to enrage, social media designed to provoke, a culture that rewards outrage over understanding. But we must ask ourselves, who benefits when we lose control? Certainly not us. To feel is natural, but to be governed by feeling is weakness. Seneca reminds us, a raging storm cannot last forever, nor can a strong emotion. And so we learn to pause, to observe, to acknowledge emotion without becoming its prisoner. We step back, we breathe, we choose. In that space between impulse and action, we reclaim our power. And in that power, we find something greater than fleeting emotion. We find true strength. We hold on so tightly to people, to expectations, to the illusion of control. We grip what we love as if our grasp alone could keep it from slipping through our fingers. But life is not something to be clenched in a fist. It is water, ever flowing, ever changing. To live well is to understand this truth. What is meant to leave us will leave, and what is meant to stay will stay, regardless of our resistance. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Yet how often do we exhaust ourselves trying to force reality into submission? We resist endings, we resent change, we fight against time itself, and in this battle we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we refuse to let go. Modern life feeds this illusion. We curate our online personas, immortalizing moments in pixels, believing that if we capture them, they will never fade. But nothing is permanent. Not youth, not fortune, not even the people we love. This is not a tragedy. It is the nature of existence. And to embrace it fully is not to lose, it is to be free. Seneca tells us, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." We do not own yesterday. Tomorrow is uncertain. But this moment, this breath, this heartbeat, this is ours. And only in surrendering our grip do we truly begin to live.